We have one of the most unpopular governments in decades. Rocketing energy bills, people forced to choose between heating and eating, our NHS at its breaking point. They're on course to lose the next election. So what do? Use the language of the far right, stoke culture wars, and manufacture a migrant crisis. This is all to divide the working class, and we mustn't let that happen. It's time to call out these liars and hypocrites. The outrage we've seen at Gary Lineker's tweet reveals a shocking state of affairs for the press, where there was more outrage at a TV presenter than at government policy which will ban all asylum claims and break international law. The BBC has allowed presenters like Jeremy Clarkson, who said,
"Frankly, I'd have them all shot. I would take them outside and execute them in front of their families. I mean, how dare they go on strike?"
Andrew Neil, who was the chairman of the hard right Spectator magazine, and Alan Sugar, who encouraged voters to vote for the Conservative Party. But it's Gary Lineker that they took off air for criticising inhumane Tory policy. This shows that impartiality at the BBC is a lie. And it's little surprise when the chairman of the BBC, Richard Sharp, donated £400,000 to the Conservative Party and facilitated a loan of £800,000 to Boris Johnson. Its Director General, Tim Davie, was a candidate for the Conservative Party and also deputy at his local Conservative Party association. So whatever you think of BBC impartiality, under Sharp and Davie, that is straightforwardly untrue now. While the right-wing press were obsessing over Gary Lineker's tweet, it took John Barnes and Ian Wright to highlight how this was distracting us from cruel government policy that harms the most vulnerable people fleeing war, conflict and persecution.
This should not be about Gary Lineker and the BBC pundits supporting him. This should be about the refugees and them coming over, and that's the conversation that should be had.
Just over a decade ago, there was a political party in the UK talking about a migrant invasion. It wasn't the Conservatives and it wasn't UKIP, it was the neo-Nazi BNP. The language used by fascists then is the language used by the Home Secretary now.
The British people deserve to know which party is serious about stopping the invasion.
What the Tories are doing isn't about stopping the boats. Not even the Home Secretary believes it will do that. It's about diverting attention. It's about scapegoating. This is classic divide and rule. It's about the Tories trying to get ahead in the polls and desperately cling on to power, even if that means throwing refugees under the bus and breaking international law. These aren't boats we're legislating on, they're people. People who have often fled unimaginable horrors, come into the UK because they speak the language or they have family here, or just because they believe this is a country worth rebuilding their lives in. The Tories are trying to convince us that millions, if not billions of people are trying to come to the UK. But let's remember that only a tiny proportion of refugees even try to come to Britain and Europe. Nearly 9 in 10 displaced people live in developing countries, and even those that do come to Europe, France, Germany, Spain and Austria all accept more asylum claims than we do. They take that route only because the government has closed safe routes and refuses to create new ones. So really, this is a crisis of compassion and solidarity right from the very top. And while the media were giving so much attention to Gary Lineker's tweet, our Prime Minister found time and money to upgrade his local electricity grid to heat his private pool. While at the same time, we have seen almost 400 swimming pools close down in our communities since 2010. Last year, child food poverty nearly doubled to almost 4 million, and workers' wages fell at the fastest rate in decades. The number of people sleeping on our streets rose by more than 25%. Our hospitals and schools continue to crumble with their funding slashed, and we see teachers and nurses forced to strike just to make ends meet. And while poverty rocketed, the richest people in the UK amassed record wealth, with UK billionaires adding an extra £56 billion to their fortunes. These are the real crises gripping our country, but the Tories have no interest in addressing those, and so they have to manufacture different ones. Let's remember that it's not refugees that drive down wages and hike up rents. It's greedy bosses and wealthy landlords. It's not refugees who use tax havens to avoid paying their fair share. It's corporate tax dodgers. And it's not refugees who let our schools and hospitals fall into ruin. It's this Conservative government. So it's time we reject this divide and rule politics and address the real sources of this country's problems. It's sheer luck that some of us are born in safe countries and have the passport that we do, that we don't find ourselves in such difficult circumstances. So when we see stories of people fleeing war and persecution, taking dangerous journeys, let's recognise their humanity and show them compassion. What happened with Gary Lineker shows the power of solidarity and sticking to your principles. He was targeted for challenging this rotten Tory government, but because his colleagues stood up for him, they fought the bullies back. This shows the power of solidarity and standing together. That's a powerful lesson for us all. When the right-wing press is stoking up hate and fear and helping manufacture a refugee crisis, it's really important that we speak about the real issues at hand and humanise refugees and migrants. So if you can, please support Double Down News on Patreon.